everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happening? Because you guys know what it is. This is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast, brought to you by MSOTD Rocks, Rock Metal Thrive. Hey guys, giving you a happy Tuesday because it is November 16th and one of probably my most fun episodes I've ever shot and recorded is today's episode with one of the best guests I have ever had in the podcast twice. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsors. First, Phoenix Fitness. Yes, you guys know I love my content. I love my mosh pits. I cannot stop. I mean, the day before I recorded this, I was in the mosh pit like crazy for Devil Wears Prada. We came as Romans. Made sure the stamina and the strength and everything was on par. So I was running the pit, did not stop. But to do that, I got to make sure that I build muscle right, recover right, do everything right in the gym. So I'm working out constantly, building cardio, doing a lot of cardio work, running, biking, all that stuff, lifting a lot. But I got to make sure I recover right and prepare right. That's where Phoenix Fitness comes in. Different supplements such as pre-workouts, both stim and stim-free, different proteins, different creatines, different B-cell recovery compounds, multivitamins, anything you need in the supplement game to help improve your fitness, Phoenix Fitness has for you. So our listeners of the podcast get 15% off your entire order at fnxfit.com. Use the code MSOTD. Do that. Link in the description below, so make sure you do that. Thank you, Phoenix Fitness. Second off, I want to thank our second sponsor, Custom Debuts. What does Custom Debuts do? Well, they give you custom posters of anything in the music industry. So pick an album, pick an artist, whatever you want. Pick a song even. And what they can do is if it's an album and an artist, whatever it might be, they can put like this whole entire poster together for you. Album, song run through, and just really putting together everything to make, your own custom poster. Same thing with like a vinyl record that has lyrics of a certain song in it, or a full-on, more explosive kind of style vinyl. And yes, you can edit them as much as possible with their team. You add you put in your album, your song, your artist, and they'll give you a concept within 24 hours or 48 hours, I believe. And then you can make as many edits as you want before you give them the final product. And it can be printed on museum paper, canvas, or even aluminum. And I still got to get me one of those. Probably going to be something from the Silver Scream or Silver Scream 2, Welcome to Horrorwood, or something by Rise Against, because you know me. So our listeners, if you want to take a look at that and get something like that, you get 10% off. Use the code CPP at Custom Debuts. Link description below. I want to thank you guys. But now in our feature presentation, Joey from the band VRSTY is back on the podcast. The band's new album, Welcome Home, comes out on Friday the 19th. We talk all about the album. Joey gets personal on it, and we talk about its dynamic writing style, how incredibly different it goes from song to song, how each song has its own identity. And we also go into why Joey and VRSTY are probably the hardest working band around today. I mean, the dude literally prints merch in his house. He bought printing presses material and custom, garments and stuff to print with. This dude is nuts, and I absolutely love it. And then at the end of the podcast, I give you an overall take on Welcome Home by VRSTY, and that is something you're going to want to hear to believe. Are you ready? Yes, you are. So let's go! Yeah! Woo! Well, ladies and boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. I had this man on the Chord Progression Podcast back in April after I did a whole video trying to figure out the band, and it was absolutely incredible being able to talk to him about it. And after the release of their Cloud City EP back in 2020, this band has been on an upward trajectory, and now their debut LP is due to release on November 19th, 2021. They're going to be out on tour in November with my friends in Kingdom Collapse, and man, I can't wait to talk all about this album, all about what this guy's been up to. So please welcome back Joey from VRSTY. So Joey, welcome back, man.
Dude, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Dude, thanks for being back on the podcast, man. I mean, I was super excited to make sure that I got you back in the podcast. I got that email. It's like, yeah, you guys are coming out with the new album. I saw it from Adam Splitter. I'm just like, must have him back on now.
Yeah, I actually, it's funny because when you messaged our PR or whatever, when you emailed them to get back on the podcast, I saw your name and I was like, yeah, I really want to do that one again. That was really fun the first time. So yes.
Well, I'm honored, man. I'm honored to have you back on. I'm honored to be able to listen to Welcome Home before, it came out because I knew there was going to be so much on there after listening to the initial single Sick, and then of course Finesse coming out afterwards. There are a bunch of other tracks here. I'm just like, I can't wait to see what Joey comes up with, because knowing your influences from that hip hop, R&B style, bringing in rock and metal all over the place, I'm just thinking this album has the chance to be so dynamic every step of the way, where no matter what happens, every song's going to have its own identity. It's going to have its own flow, its own sound. It's going to stand out and could potentially have VRSTY not only stick heavy in the rock and metal genre, which you guys are in right now, but cross over and really be prominent players in rock and metal and hip hop and R&B all over the place.
Well, I mean, I hope so, man. That's the plan, hopefully.
Well, I mean, after listening to it, well, I'll just give you a little bit of a quick just preview. Yeah, I think you definitely could pull that off, and I think you did here.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Dude, that's so nice to hear because I'm so terrified of this record, like so terrified.
Why are you terrified of it?
It's like, so normally with records, like I write everything and I always have like as I'm writing, I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. This is a go overall or this or whatever. But with Welcome Home, it was kind of like, I'm just going to do whatever I want and I don't care. And whatever. And I did it and I love the record, but I feel like it's very different from what people would expect us to do. I feel like I don't know what people are going to expect, but I just feel like most of them won't expect some of the songs on this record.
Well, when you're blending so many different genres and you're bringing in so many different influences that you have and writing the music that you want, that's what I thought as well, especially going through it at first, because I knew for a fact, I know what your music is from the past. I know what Cloud City was like, and hearing Sick come out as the first single, my first thought was, alrighty, we're getting something like we kind of got in the good, like Cloud City, something I really like. So I'm like, okay, I like the direction he's going in. But I'm still kind of curious to see where else Joey's going to go due to the fact that, again, you have so many different influences. You can blend so many different styles. And I know a lot of people are going to be thrown off by a couple of these songs because, not going to lie, I was thrown off by some of them too.
Yeah, some of them are definitely like weird. They're very like, oh, what the hell is that?
Absolutely. But then again, it is your personality that's coming out in these songs. Though. It's your personality that's coming out in the music. So that's what we'd rather see instead of just kind of, basically it's like, oh, what do the fans want? Here, let's give it that. It's no.
Yeah.
What do you want to make? What do you want to create? Give us that because it's going to come out. And again, I'll use Sick as the perfect example. Like when I first heard the intro of that song and all of a sudden that first riff, I'm just like, oh, this is going to be a good album.
Yeah, what's funny about it? I think Sick was one of the last songs we wrote. I think may have been the actual last song for the record. It's weird to say this, but we started writing a bunch of different things towards the end of the album cycle versus from the beginning of the album cycle. And Sick was part of that. And it like made the record like by like a hair. And it's funny because it did. And then when we were going through the songs, like, oh, what do we want to put out first? Like that was the one that we all kind of looked at. We're like, are you sure? Like you want to do this? And then I don't remember who it was, but someone's like, yeah, we should pull the plug on it. It has to be this song.
Say whoever said that, I think the biggest reason why it works is because when you listen to Cloud City, it's like a song like Massive, which is the one that really got you guys going on Octane. It's listening to Sick. It sounds like for me, it felt like the next evolution of Massive. And you could see some of the different vocals that you were using in there as well, especially when you got to the chorus. I'm thinking a little bit of a higher pitch. We're seeing a little bit more of that evolution with some more of that hip hop R&B style coming in there, but we're still getting that same feel, the heaviness from the backing instrumentals that we got on Massive. So when it comes to a transition, maybe to some of these other songs that you go completely in a different direction with, seeing that from the forefront from the first single, it makes a lot of sense to really bring us all in here, but then also be open to whatever else you're going to come up with due to a little bit of that different vocal change on Sick.
No, yeah, you're totally right. It kind of did feel like it was like the next natural step. It was weird because we didn't write it. I feel like that's a song that people would have probably thought we would have written right after Massive, but it was like the time gap between like Massive and Sick was it was insane.
That is really nuts though. But again, coming out as your first single, I thought, again, like this is going to be one hell of an album, especially if this is what you guys are starting out with. But if that was going to be the thing that you guys wrote last, now my head's spinning and like, what did you write first on this? What was like the first couple things you're writing? What were the things that you were really proud of when you wrote this album? And like, what are your favorite songs on the album that, people haven't heard yet?
All right, so let's start with favorite. Favorite song on the album is "We Always." It's a song called "We Always" on the record. Super personal song to me. That is 180% my favorite song on the record. And then right after that would be "Soul." I love Soul. I know Soul is super different, and I feel like that's one of the songs that people are gonna hear just that intro guitar, and they're gonna be like, "What the hell is this song even gonna turn into? I think as far as what we wrote first, I feel like we went in there and I was kind of like, my state of mind wasn't really like the healthiest when I went in to write the record. And I think because of that, when we started writing, it was a lot of the softer, like slower songs in the record that we wrote first, because that's like, it's just where I was at, like mentally at the time. I think Gravity was one of the first ones we wrote. And then we just kept going. And then as the energy picked up, like we started like, all right, we should write like a more energetic song. And then towards the end of the cycle is when we wrote Sick and Finesse. And it's weird because like those two songs, so we started writing them towards the end. And like, I'm not trying to like give anything away. But we wrote more songs than are on the record. And the songs that we wrote towards the end, and even some of the ones that didn't make the record, are legitimately some of the heaviest songs like I've written like ever. But I think it's because of the progression of how we started writing, and just the energy continuously went up. And then we're like, all right, we're just gonna start writing like a bunch of heavy stuff. But by then we had already run out of time. I went over my time limit. We were in the studio for about like a month and a half. We were only supposed to be there like a couple of weeks. So yeah, it kind of, I was like, well, all right, well, we have more songs at least.
I'll say when the creative process is flowing, you just got to keep doing it. And with those even heavier ones that you're still like, you wrote for this album, but you didn't use, you can always still somewhat use them, like maybe like an extended version, or hold on to them and have like an EP, or maybe use them on the next album that you're coming out with. But it is very interesting to hear how you started out working on some of these songs that maybe had a little bit of a softer touch, a little bit lighter touch to them. And then as you were continuing to go through the process, building up on the energy to the point where, you know, when you get to those last couple of songs you wrote, like the singles that are out with Finesse and Sick, they have a feel like the heavier songs they have a heavier relation to the songs of the Cloud City EP. So I think, again, a lot of people are going to be open now to hearing what else you have, due to the fact that we know that some of that heavier stuff is still there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never gonna get rid of the heavier stuff. It's just I love it. I wish we can get heavier. It's just I have to figure out how to make it work for us. Like, my thing is with us now, normally I just write whatever the hell I want, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm just gonna do this and sing over it. And that's been my thing with everything. But it's lately I don't want to say I care more now than I cared before, but I think I'm like picking out things in the music more now that I didn't necessarily hear before, because I'm just I have no, my brain is just like constantly like, oh, well, what about this? What about that? And so I want to do like heavier music, but I want it to be something that's like interesting and also still weird and still feels like us and works, you know?
Again, I totally understand that as well. And I think a lot of it has to do with bringing in that same feel, like it's going to be genuine Varsity, is going to be how you bring in some of these different like R&B and hip hop influence there, along with how your voice ends up working through it. Because like I've heard some of the heavier stuff you've done with your voice and some of the lighter stuff you've done. And I remember when we were talking from the first time we talked, and I did that whole entire I Figure Out Varsity, and I talked about how on some of the earlier stuff your voice had kind of like a higher pitched whine to it that kind of was a little more consistent than the Cloud City EP. It kind of left. And then here on this album, there was one instance where I heard, I'm like, it kind of came back, but on the song that it came back on, I just listened, I'm like, I cannot get that chorus out of my head, because the way that it's done in that chorus with the backing instrumentals, it comes out the way you exactly need that whine to come out. So I'm like, this is, if you're going to bring it back, you're going to bring it back. And it was on Never Again. I'm like, yeah, you definitely hit it on that one.
Yeah, Never Again was one of the songs where actually, Never Again was I think the first song we wrote for the record.
Really?
It was the very first one. And here's the funny thing. I didn't even write that song. I wrote the lyrics and the melodies, but the instrumental, like, I didn't even write it. Cody from Wage War wrote that song. So me and here's the most interesting story in the world. So we did a co-write together. Never Again, obviously. And when we were talking and we were on like Zoom and everything, and we were doing it, we were thinking about just like what to write. And because it's Cody, obviously, I feel like everyone expect him to write something like really super, just balls to the wall, heavy for us. And just talking and having fun, we're just like, yo, let's just kind of write something else. Like, let's see what happens. And we didn't even write it on electric. We wrote it as an acoustic song. And he was like, hey, give me like an hour and I'm gonna have an instrumental ready for you. And it didn't even take him an hour. It's like a couple of minutes. He sent me back an MP3. He's like, "What do you think of this instrumental?" And I'm like, "Dude, what the fuck? Like, this is perfect. Like, holy crap." And so we got into the studio, and Andrew heard the song, our producer Andrew, and he was like, "Yeah," he's like, "We're gonna start with this one." And I'm like, "Okay."
I mean, honestly, for me, even like, again, I love the heavier stuff. So when I listen to this, I was like, again, thinking, is this going to be heavy? It's gonna be like, what is it going to be? But just the way that it worked, and now hearing that it was written with Cody from Wage War, I mean,
Yeah.
everyone's going to hear that and think, or we can get something like Joey's going to basically go all Wage War high horse on our asses. But no,
Yeah.
it's not that. And hearing how this was supposed to be an acoustic track at first, but a lot of it, like, you bring in a lot more of these electronic instrumentals in there, along with a lot of these, like, sometimes, some of the more melodic and heavier back instrumentals. It all worked off just with the way everything flowed together, because, like, with the chorus, I'm taking a look at my notes for the chorus as well from the instrumental standpoint, because you have the drums in there playing melodic, heavier style, guitars playing melodic but rougher style underneath, and it seems like there's another guitar that's playing, like, a more melodic higher note over the top of everything, and it's louder throughout the whole entire thing. And as I look at my notes again, I put, this is a fantastic, great payoff. It feels like we're letting out the emotion that we are sorry for hurting others that we love, and that we want to work on ourselves to make sure we better ourselves. I like this payoff. Heavier, but still light enough to flow with the entire song as a piece.
Yeah.
So it's like, again, this is something that stuck out to me. And then your vocals over the top of it, that was the clincher. Even like, and it was a lot lighter of a vocal style, but it just fit in so well with the progression from the rest of the song.
It was, it's interesting that you say that the vocal style was different, because I did sing it differently. Like, when we went to sing it, I had a completely, so I wrote that chorus, but I wrote it a little differently, because when I demo things, I don't go like all out. And when I got into the studio, I was singing it, and I'm like, it's not hitting the emotion I need. And I literally looked at Andrew, was like, "Hey, I'm gonna have to. It's gonna get a little whiny, but I'm like, I have to get up here, like in that top of my range, to like actually get this song to feel the way I want to." It's also interesting that you said that you literally just spoke about like how the song is like wanting to do better and like feeling sorry for hurting people. The song is actually a love letter to myself. So I wrote the song from the perspective of, if I could go back in time and apologize to myself for all the shit that I put myself through, like, what would I actually say? Because you let yourself go. I feel like, maybe, I don't know if it's me, maybe everyone has this, but I'm like, there was a time in my life where I feel like I let who I was go. And I knew that it wasn't the right thing to do, but I did it anyway. And now coming back, like, full circle, when I'm older and stuff like that, like, thinking back on it, I'm like, I constantly let myself down to this point where I'm like, I could have not done any of this stuff, and I could have saved myself from a lot of shit. And I didn't. And so it's funny, because like that, it's actually exactly what you said. Like, but it's like, I'm tired of hurting myself, kind of a thing. Like, I keep putting myself in those situations where things happen to me, and most people don't get the chance to, don't ever see that they should apologize to themselves for the things that they put themselves through. Like, in order to forgive someone else, you have to forgive yourself first.
Oh, absolutely. I remember, this was back in 2017. It was after me and the one longtime girlfriend I had, we broke up, and it was like, I was taking it hard, and she kept telling me, like, if you're going to get over this, like, you're going to have to forgive yourself first. And it took me a while to realize that, but it was the honest truth. And it was all, coming up with the music stuff and the podcast that really let me kind of forgive myself for it. But I do understand what you're saying. It's like, there's a lot of times where a lot of us want to go back in time and take a look at the things that we had done, and potentially, want to reverse course, because we potentially let ourselves go to not be the people we want to be. Hell, for me, most of the time, that was like when I was in, grade school and middle school, because I was trying to fit in, when all of a sudden I should have just kept doing what I wanted to do. And, once I started doing that, kind of felt like a little bit more of an outcast, but I was happier being the guy that, listened to Disturbed all the time.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's, to be fair though, Disturbed is also a great band. So
absolutely. But even like going back and Never Again as well, because talking about the chorus vocals, because you do get that whine to get up there though. And you do have this, like, again, it's lighter, a little bit scratchier, but it's a lot more forceful to hit that higher note. And as I look at my notes, I've heard a little bit of this whininess from him and his vocals before, and it has had a little bit of a too much of like that whininess quality. But this time, it makes total sense to have it in here.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're begging for the chance to keep working on this relationship, despite the flaws that the relationship with even yourself when you let yourself go and want to go back and apologize for it and potentially make some changes, but you can't do that. And we can feel like that as well when we are fighting for something or for someone that we care for, even if that is ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. You're 180% right. It's crazy. Like you like nailed that. Like you got that.
When it came to me looking through this album and like working on each song, I probably took 3 whole days to go through all the songs or like really try and nail them down because I wasn't gonna, half-ass this thing.
No, I appreciate it, man. I mean, I appreciate it because I feel like you're one of the only people, if not the only person that actually does like deep dives on the music. Like, and it's like, damn, that's like super like, it's just nice to know that someone cares about the music enough to be like, I want to learn everything about this, like the words and everything else, and I want to know what the song is about and actually kind of put it together. It's nice, man. I appreciate you for it.
Oh, thanks, man. I mean, that means a lot because I love doing stuff because there's a lot of music that, even for myself, I know what I like, but for some, and I don't want to just discount a bunch of different kind of music because if you're bringing in different influences, I'm like, normally, ooh, I'm not the biggest fan of that. I don't want to discount that because maybe those influences and those different sounds really pull out a different emotion that really work. And on Never Again, it's just the lighter sound of that chorus, but just the vocals they use, it makes total sense when you understand the meaning of the song and how it progresses. Because when you hit that mark, it stands out to me as when I listen through this album, and every time I go back and listen through it for the past couple of days, whenever I got to Never Again, I always knew exactly where that emotion was going to be, how it was going to hit, and it just made total sense. It was something I was looking forward to on every run through.
Well, that's good because that actually makes you better. Because Never Again was also one of the songs that I was like scared of. Even though we did that one first, like listening back to, I'm like, God, I've never written something like this. So I wonder how people are going to take this kind of a thing.
Well, I think again, it's just something where, especially with the way that the album progresses, if people listen to it from front to back, which I hope they do, it's of course you're gonna have Finesse being the first song on the run through and Sick being the fourth song, so you're gonna get some of the heavier stuff up front. Then you have I gotta make sure I get the other songs' names right because if I don't, I'm gonna be on. Then you get Soul second and Closer third. I just want to make sure I get those two. And with Soul, again, you're going to, like, especially from the intro, like you said, you're going to get something much different because I remember the first time I heard that, I was thrown off completely by how that song started. I was not expecting that in any sort of way.
We put that song second on purpose. When I was putting together the list of songs, I'm like, I really want people to get into this record. But then I also want them to, move from the first song into the second song and literally be like, wow, that first song is sick. And then the second one starts to be like, what, is this the same record? And that's how like I came up with the idea of doing Soul second. Soul is actually one of my, Soul was such a fun song to write also. Like it was so much fun.
I don't
think I've ever.
Well, why was it so much fun to write? Because I got to know this.
I'm like a huge like Johnny Cash fan. So to be able to be like, oh, you know what I really want to do? I want to play like some like rockabilly stuff in like a metal song and actually be in the studio and start playing something and my producer look at me and be like, I don't know what is that, but keep doing that. Like that's what we're going to do. And then put it on the record and it actually makes sense and sound the way it sounds. I'm like, that to me was like, holy crap. Like this is like, I don't know. It's just a lot of, it made it more fun for me and more interesting because it's always fun to write things outside of what you would normally write, you know? And I feel like most people that know me or that don't, you know, that just know me from the band don't know that I'm like a huge Johnny Cash fan or I'm into like country or rockabilly or nothing like that. So now they get like little pieces of that, like, oh man, this guy might be into other types of music aside from just pop, you know, and rock.
I mean, that definitely threw me off when you said, like, you're a big fan of Johnny Cash. But, again, it threw me off. But after listening to Soul, I can see more of that connection rather easily. When people are listening to this interview and have not listened to Soul yet, it's going to be like, what's going on here? Like, what are we going to expect? But trust me on this, everyone that's listening to the podcast, when I say this, when it comes to soul, yeah, that intro is going to throw you off completely after finesse. You're not going to expect what happens. However, just let it happen and really listen to it, because it's going to start out different. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to ruin the surprise. But then you get to the verses and then it does keep up, but then you get this little more of like this like flam roll on the snare drum to keep the building of the energy throughout the whole entire thing. So it's starting to bring in some of this heavier stuff in the background to really make sense. And then the chorus comes in and now you're bringing a little bit more of this fuller feel to it while keeping what the intro had in there, to really let it kind of burst out a little bit with the drums. But the outro of that chorus, oh Lord, that was something where I'm like, okay, how did you blend all this together? And it's all the build of it too, because when you get to that outro, it takes that same flow of the chorus, but drops the guitars to a much heavier tone, brings in some extra energy to the song to show more of the power that is behind just love in a way. That's what it felt like. And I'm like, this is the part of the song that brought me in. But as it transitions back to the verses with kind of the feel of what you had in the original verses, the coolest thing about it was it did not feel forced in any sort of way. It felt like it just naturally progressed back in there because the energy level that you had built up, kind of just bringing it back down to where the verses were, it wasn't that big of a drop. It kept the flow going with how fast of a pace it is. So, I mean, it just makes sense.
So that was one of the main things that I was kind of, I was having fun with, but I was also kind of scared of, because I was like, I love this style of music. I love metal and I love like country, rockabilly, all that stuff. But I'm just like, I never want any of my songs to feel forced. I don't want it to feel like a gimmick. If I'm going to do this, I want it to feel like it belongs where it is. And it's just a natural progression of like instruments and things like that. And again, that's part of what made it fun. Like just trying to figure out like, how am I going to make this work? And then hearing the final product back and just listen to it and be like, holy crap. Like, I can't believe I made that work.
I think the biggest reason why you make it work is because when you have the energy from that outro of the chorus, it is heavier, but you do have a higher energy to it. But then when you go back to the verses, it's that special thing you have in there that I'm going to, keep saying the special thing so everyone has forced to listen to without spoiling it. It does have a faster pace to it, so it keeps that energy up, but it keeps up in a different way. But just the fact that energy is consistent between the outro of the chorus and the verses, that's where it feels so natural, because it is a huge shift, but it doesn't feel like a huge shift. It doesn't feel like it's forced at all.
Well, energy is important now. Like, I love energetic songs, so like keeping the energy to it was definitely like one of the things that I kept in mind. I was like, all right, this has to be, if this is what we're going with, it has to be like balls to the wall the whole time. Energy, all the way up until the last big part of the song.
Yeah, up until that last big part where you kind of slow it up, but then all of a sudden you do build right back into that energy. Mm-hmm. And I think you remember, if you remember correctly, you build it with kind of like just dropping the instrumentals back and letting your voice kind of carry that energy back in, and then the chorus instrumentals hit back in. And again, it's building that energy in a way that really makes sense in the flow of the song, because by using your voice to kind of build into that, and then you hit the chorus and your vocals continue on that trend, it feels natural to progress through that.
Yeah. I'm glad it feels natural to progress into that. I'm also like glad you like the song, because there are two songs on the record that I'm the most afraid of. One of them being Soul and the other one being 11 a.m. And so if you enjoy Soul, I'm like, all right, cool. I'm in the clear here, man.
Oh, then let's go into 11 a.m. because I remember that's as everyone wants to know, that is the last song that is on this record. And that was the one where I listened to this thing, and this one, as I'm looking at my little overall synopsis, this song really does something different than all of the others. I put that as the initial part of my overall. So I got to ask, so everyone knows, why are you also most nervous about 11 a.m.?
11 a.m. is not a metal song. Like, it's not, I don't even think it's literally just a ballad. Like, it's really stripped down. There's not a lot to it. And it's the most personal song on the record. And I remember writing that instrumental, and me and Andrew sat down, and I think I wrote that song like 4 or 5 times. And I had different lyrics each time, but I was like, it's not hitting the way I want to. And one of the nights I went home, and I was just thinking, like, I feel like I'm singing about the wrong thing. Like, I need to sing about something that I'm singing about things that I feel like, oh, maybe like people would like this, but I'm like, with this song, I should just do this one for myself. And I never get the chance to talk about like my personal life. Most of the time, that's not like something that I usually share. And then with this song, I was like, I actually want to sing about, I'm going to sing about my daughter and like wanting to do something, wanting to be something bigger than just me, you know? And I went in the studio, I sang the song, and I remember Andrew being like, I sang the first couple of lines because I showed him, I was like, hey, I want to try something different. Here are the first couple of lines and here's the chorus. And before I even finished it, he was like, yeah, he's like, I need you to go in there and just do it all right now. And also the song was, it's not as layered as the other one. So, you know, like when you record, you'll go in, you'll do a first verse and a second verse and kind of thing. 11 a.m. is really raw to the point where it was like, I would sing entire sections of songs. And just like, and I would like one shot it and he'd be like, that's the take. Like, I don't need anything else. Like, don't worry about it. And so it was really, it was a really different process for me. And I know like it's a slower song. There's not really a lot going on in it. And I wonder what people are going to feel like as they reach the end of the album and get to that song.
Well, I'll put it this way. When I was looking through it, because of course I always try and figure out the meaning of this thing, and I'm gonna read for you what I have for as what I thought the meaning was for the song, because I think it absolutely hits on what you were going for. I saw it. Meaning is about being the best person you can be for your children. As parents, you watch your kids grow up and you love all the things that they do, and you always want to be seen as the person your kid can come to and run to whenever they need you. You want to be their hero and understand that they will love you just as much as you love them, so make sure it's an unconditional love.
180%. Yes. Also, 11 a.m. was the title of the song was the first moment I saw her. So she was born at, I want to say like 9 something in the morning. But when she was born, they like kind of, she was like wrapped up in like her mom's, like, this is like a super personal thing, but whatever. She was like wrapped up like in her mom's umbilical cord kind of thing. So they had to like cut that out. And then she had like a little bit of complications. So they pulled us out of the room. And the first time I got to see her was about like 2 hours later at 11 a.m. when they were like, this is your daughter. Here's your little girl. So it's like a super personal song, but I'm glad I got to do it. And I hope other people enjoy that song like as much as I enjoyed singing
it. Dang, that is personal as it gets. And I'll include this in there because when I was listening to this album, when I really got to go through the initial run through it, it was a week after I was following 2 weddings I went to with 2 of my very good friends getting married on each weekend. So I was kind of, always kind of in that mode to think about this, but I still remember like all the speeches that because it was a guy got married. Yeah. Each of my friends, it was like their brides, it's their fathers were the ones that were talking and that gave a speech. Yeah. And then, doing like the daddy-daughter dance, like father of the bride, dance of the bride dance, all that good kind of stuff. It's like when I was listening to this song, I kept thinking about the moments of like seeing those because again, it was fresh in my head and hearing how this worked. I'm thinking, can you imagine how many people are going to listen to this song and feel the impact and intensity, especially if a father listens to it, all of a sudden you get to that point where it's like, okay, your daughter's getting married. This is a song that you could easily pull out for that dance, and it fits so many different persons because it shows the love that a father has for their child, especially for their daughter, and just shows that how much of an important person they want to be in their lives and how they want to be seen as that person that they can run to when there's a problem that's always going to love them no matter what.
Yeah. And it's also like funny because we started off by talking about Never Again, and like Never Again is a song about wanting to go back and apologize to myself, but when it kind of ties into 11 a.m. because when I'm singing that song, like as I'm singing that song, like in the lyrics, like I talk about how like I want to change, and the only reason why I even wrote Never Again about going back and wanting to go back and apologize because now I have this love for my daughter, so that. It's the end song on the record, but it's kind of like in a sense like this is where the story begins. Like it was this, and this caused the change that made me start experiencing all these things and eventually want to go back and apologize to myself and forgive myself for things and stuff. So it's interesting, man. Like this record is definitely interesting to me. And it's weird because also it's my record, but sometimes I listen to it and I have to pause and think, like, did I really just do that? Like, did I actually say that?
Man, you're starting to make like me get emotional, like in my chest right now, just like hearing this and going through 11 a.m. as well. It's because you said it's just like it kind of just sticks out as a completely different style because it kind of has more of this just flowing feel. It doesn't have this layered feel to it like a normal song would. And I did pick up on that because you really stick with this one sound instrument with more of an acoustic ballad style to create that feel. But by doing that, it really allowed your vocals to show what they could do with different tones and some like lighter tones, just kind of a little bit more of this higher pitch as well, just to really let it out. And those vocals to me show the loving embrace and happiness of basically watching your child grow up, to the vocal bridge that makes you feel like you have successfully seen your child grow into the best person that they can be. And you were there to watch them, guide them, and be there for them every step of the way. And literally the last three words I put in that overall is be their hero.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly, that's the chorus, man. Like, I just want to be your hero. I just want to be someone that you're like, you know, my dad was like, he was the guy, like whenever I needed anything, like he always knew exactly what to say to make me feel better about any situation I was in.
And putting it at the end of the album too, it was something where going through the whole entire thing, when I got to the end, it was one that really got me because it was that, you know, Easter egg kind of thing where I'm like, what am I going to expect? Like, where's like the thing that just sticks out, like that just is like hidden in there, but sticks out. And that is it, because it's like the rest of the record, you're putting all these different styles in there. Again, the rock, metal, hip hop, R&B, all this stuff in there. But then you get to this and it's just, you're just kind of letting the emotion come out, and it fits so well at the back end of the album to really kind of lead us into potentially, like you said, kind of the start of the story. But it feels like I could go through the album, go from top to bottom, and then after hearing that, then kind of, you know, go in reverse and kind of tell the story from like where it's supposed to start to where it's supposed to end, instead of like kind of building it the opposite way. You can listen to this album in many different ways. It's going to work.
Yeah, I actually built the record that way. I was like, oh, it'd be cool if like I can get to the end of the record and then you hear that song, and that's actually the start of the story. And if you listen to the album backwards, you still get that story. Like, you're just like, oh crap. Like, you can listen to it both ways and be like, I understand all of this. Which is really another fun thing too, because this is our first LP, so I never got to put together an album like that, you know. Like with an EP, I was like, all right, well, let's kind of put it together, and I put the songs, you know, in an order that I thought they fit. But with this was like, I'm kind of telling a story, more of a story. So,
and just the order that you put them into, again, it fits so well to kind of get to that. And when you get to that end, it just opens up the album in a completely different mindset than you initially had started it with. So you can go back through it the other way and feel it, the exact same story, in a completely different emotion based off of 11 a.m.
The album also gets sadder as you get into it. So it's really funny because I don't think I did that on purpose, but I think subconsciously, like when you start from song 1 and you get to like, I think by the time you reach like song 5 or 6, it starts getting sadder in topic, and you're like, what the hell is happening here? And you realize it's just going through, like, the record kind of takes you on this like emotional ride, and then you end up at 11 a.m. and you're like, holy crap, like it was all leading to this one moment.
Well, yeah, because after Sick, when you have Paranoid in there, it just really starts to change a little bit of a different tone with that more, with more topics that get more emotional, a little bit more heavy. Because like with Sick, with Finesse, it's you do touch on some things, but again, it has a little more of a heavier quality to it. So a lot of us that like the heavier side of ours, like we're really into the sound, and we can get into the message after the sound. But then you get into Pressure, it's like, okay, now we're starting to get a little bit deeper. You go to Never Again, We Always, and it just keeps building from there up until you get to 11 a.m.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where, like, when you start the record, you have one feeling, but as you keep listening, you're like, oh man, this is turning into something completely different.
That's why using the word dynamic to describe this thing, I think, is the best way to put it, because as we start out, again, like for myself, I'm like, okay, listening to Finesse, I'm like, okay, I'm liking where this is going. Listening to Soul, again, like the start of it just throws you for a loop, but it just keeps working. Closer, I do want to get into right after this, just because that song, like, that's another one that sticks out to me for a completely different reason. Sick was one hell of a, you know, first single to put out there, but then you get, you know, you keep going in, you get into Paranoid, and all of a sudden the sounds kind of change up a little bit, but the emotions change. But now you're really starting to get deeper into yourself, and in the album, from your vocals to the rest of the instrumentals to what you put in there, everything seems to get more dynamic as you go through. And then you get to 11 a.m. and it feels like you went through this full-on experience, as it will start out, you know, maybe a little bit more narrow, but then opened up, kind of like reverse funnel.
Yeah, yeah, you're actually 100% correct. It's kind of like a funnel in a little bit. It's like, but it's like upside down. So it's like, oh, you go to like the thin part, and then it just like falling into a cave, and then the cave just opens up, and you're like, there's so much more in here that I didn't expect.
That actually sounds like a good, better analogy than the
Yeah,
reverse funnel. You fall into a cave and all of a sudden it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. It's like, ah,
yeah,
ah.
it's definitely one of those things.
Yeah, but one song that really did stick out to me as well personally was "Closer," and a lot of it was the flow of the entire song because the instrumentals had this like heaviness behind them, like that you had in there, but then you had this electronic, more like hip hop kind of style over it, and the flow of the vocals. It was like you're really mixing hip hop with some of this like harder rock metal style. I'm just
Yeah,
thinking. And it doesn't, it's like, I've heard that before, kind of thinking, new metal, but this does not sound like new metal at all. Like, it has its
yeah,
own identity to it, which I'm thinking, honestly, I could literally hear this song. If you put this on, your rock station that's, in your local area, it fits on there. You could put this on your local pop hip hop station, and the flow of it still fits on it. Like,
yeah.
this song
So
might be, like, when it comes to commercially, the most dynamic, wide reaching song that you could have made.
yeah, so it's funny that you say that. Closer actually is the song where instrumentally when we put it together, I was like, all right, this is like it has like all of that like commercial appeal to it, but I don't think of myself as like a commercial singer. So I'm like, how do I make this fun? Because the instrumental is like fun and bouncy, but I'm like, all right, how do I bring like that, like a different type of bounce, like a hip hop pop kind of bounce into like this like rock bounce that it kind of has. Um, and I feel like I kind of did it. Close is also a really funny song to me because of the topic. I never wrote a song like Closer where I'm literally just talking about like, oh, you go out and you meet someone and then you're just like, oh, like the situations you get in, you're like, I kind of love this situation and I want it to go further. And I think it's important too because in the world nowadays that we live in, you can't really say anything. Like everyone is scared of literally saying anything. And Closer was one of the songs where I had to stop myself and I'm like, do I really want to talk about this? Like, do I really want to talk about like me going to a bar and meeting people and wanting to go home with them? But then it's like, actually, yeah, like it's just something that I live through. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Like if someone else enjoys it, then they'll enjoy it. But it was definitely one of the more fun topics for me because I mean, everyone goes out, everyone meets people, and everyone gets into situations where they're just like, I love this situation. Like you secretly just like, I love being here, man. I love this spot.
Dude, I can totally agree with you on that one. And that's really where I think the song kind of really worked out, especially from you had more of that like rock bounce to the instrumental flow, but you had electronics in there to really kind of bring forward this more hip hop style. But then it's your vocal and just the progression of it from like with the verses, it kind of has like a slower build to it. And all of a sudden you get these little bursts in the pre-chorus. The chorus just has an incredible flow through it, through and through, that really fits more in that hip hop style. But what ends up happening is you bring in that topic. It's something that really kind of fits in more with that bouncy flow. However, it's also something that, not gonna lie, how many of us have gone through something like that? How many of us have decided to go out? It's like, and you're hoping that maybe, you meet someone, you get to go home with them for the night. It's
Yeah,
something that if you went to college, that was kind of like almost like
yeah.
90% of the goal.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, dude, no one wants to be alone. You can go out and meet someone and they just like, oh my God, I want to spend the entire night with this person. Like, I literally I want to be engulfed in this person's life for even if it's just the next 24 hours. And that's what Closer was. Closer was literally me, literally telling the story like, oh, I went to a bar and I had a couple of drinks with this person and I got so into them that I'm like, I just want to be yours for 24 hours. Just give me 24 hours and let me get to experience your life for like a day. And it actually came out really fun. And I honestly want to perform that song live so bad. So bad.
Well, I mean, by the time this comes out, you're going to be out on tour, like I said, with the guys from Kingdom Collapse because,
Yes,
I
sir.
love those guys having I've had Jonathan on the podcast, I think, 3 times already, and I haven't had him on
Yeah.
yet in 2021. So December rolls around. Once you guys
Yeah.
are done with tour, I'm going to have him out. We're going to talk about that tour. We're going to talk about
Yeah,
what he
they
thought
are.
about your performance as well. So
Yeah.
I hope you play Closer live
Yeah.
because that thing's going to be fun as all hell to play.
It's funny because we have it in our set now. and we know how to play. We practice and everything else, but we're trying to think. We're like, well, we don't know if the song, if there's going to be enough time for it, or if that's going to be a song when the record's out that people want to hear. Because you have to live is a little bit different. You have to play the songs like you want to play it, but also you got to give the fans like their fan favorites and things like that. So it's weird because we want to play, but we also don't want to stuff fans with like too much new music at once. Like there are still some fans who just love listening to the Cloud City EP and they want us to play all of Cloud City. And I'm like, okay, well, we also got a record coming out. So it's getting to that point now where we really have to choose what songs we want to play live. And it's kind of hard. It really is hard.
It's going to be something that as you continue on your career, it's going to be something that's going to increase in difficulty because the more music you come out with, the more fans are going to latch on to certain songs as well. And whenever you release something new, you're going to want to play as much new stuff as possible, but you're going to have to balance out what you play that's new and what you play that is going to be. Because I mean, hell, I saw Rise Against 3 times already this year, and they put out a record this year. And I think they played, every time I saw them live, they played maybe 3 songs off of the new record in an hour and a half set, and sometimes it was 4. But it's like I'm like thinking, as much I'd like to hear more, all of a sudden like they're starting to play like Savior, Prayer of the Refugee, and I'm just all into it because, well, how can I not be?
Yeah, it's funny because like I know some fans are like, oh my god, please play Sick, and I'm like, we do play Sick, and then we have other fans who are like, please play Finesse, and I'm like, yes, we do play Finesse, and then there are other fans who are like, no, we just want you to play all of Cloud City. And I'm like, well, we have to play the newer songs also. So it's interesting, but it's also, it's part of the life.
It's part of life, and it's the problem of it's a good problem to have where you have the problem of having so many things you have to work with. So you're picking the best out of all the good things.
Yeah, 100%. Well, hopefully all the best ones. You never know.
You never know. I mean, you're going to end up sometimes playing stuff that might, you want to play off, some of the fans might be like, okay, maybe this wasn't the best choice to play live for them, but you're going to have to balance that out. Also, if you're able to put it in there in a way that really fits in with the whole live set and the flow, the energy of the show, then you can really make, a song that might not necessarily be a fan favorite, but one of your favorites. You can turn that into a fan favorite like that.
Yeah, well, hopefully we turn all these songs into fan favorites.
Hopefully you do. I mean, again, you guys are going out with King Collapse, and if anyone has a chance to go see them on that run in November, I highly suggest you do. Unfortunately, the close place you guys are coming to me is 4.5 hours away on a Thursday.
Yeah, so this is our last tour for the. Sorry, man, it's our last tour for the year, and we want to do something longer, but we're pretty much booked for like a lot next year. And so we're like, all right, we'll finish off the year with something small and then enjoy the holidays. And next year we're like going to hit the ground running, man. Like we're probably going to end up doing the entire US a couple of times by the time next year, like during next year. So it's, this will be fun. A fun little small tour to prepare for all the bigger things that we have to do, the longer runs.
Can I make one small plea to you, Joey, please?
Yeah.
Can you please come and play a show somewhere near me? It can be 2 hours away because that's like kind of like the limit on a weekday.
I promise we will. We're gonna hit so many places.
I'll say so whether it's me in Milwaukee because that's the easiest for me, or if you go to Madison, Wisconsin, if you go up to Green Bay, Wisconsin, or if you go to Chicago, which I mean that's probably gonna be the most likely because it's Chicago. It's the 3rd largest city in America. Yeah. Like that, I'm like I see that I'm like boom, I'm there.
Yeah, we do have. I think we have Chicago booked already a couple of times. I want to say we do. I can't give too much away, but you'll see us next year. I guarantee you'll see us next year.
I'm definitely making it happen. And one other thing I do want to talk about, something we talked about before we start recording, is the fact that it seems like with VRSTY, I mean, when it's coming to you doing everything, I mean, that is an understatement. The fact that you are printing all the merch, and when I say in-house, you are literally printing it in your house.
Yeah. So I turned my house into like a business warehouse now. So I now write and record all my music here. I design and print all of my merch. My house is also a gym now on certain days. So like I have in between printing shirts, I get a little workout in.
Yikes. And if anyone if you guys are listening to this, if you're on the VRSTY Cult page, if you're online, if you've seen anything from Joey, you'll see that at one point he did a misprint of a shirt that actually seemed to work out really, really, really well and you know what? If you make a misprint like that, just keep making misprints, man, because sometimes you come up with some cool shit.
Yeah. Dude, it's funny. I actually made that misprint, and there are other shirts that I've misprinted already, and I'm like, maybe I should just take all of these on tour and just throw them out and just be like, throw them on the table and be like, hey, listen, here's a bunch of shirts that I kind of misprinted at home. I'll sign whatever the hell you want, and here you go if you want. It's a one-of-a-kind kind of thing. But that specific misprint, I was like super tired, man. Like I was printing shirts till like 3 a.m, like the night before, and then I woke up and had to restart printing shirts and doing music and things. So it was a long night for me.
Well, one thing I will say also outside that is there's been plenty of stories of bands working incredibly hard, grinding to the bone to make sure that their dreams, that their goals in life come true. I've seen rigorous touring schedules, as constantly release music, constant connection to social media, all of this. And when it comes to you, Joey, I mean, you're like the epitome of it, with the fact that you are writing, recording, you've got all this stuff in the house. You're literally printing shirts. You're printing all the merch in-house. And then you're going on a tour this year in November to prepare for a massive tour schedule in 2022 with the release of Welcome Home, with what's going to happen with it, because you already got a lot of energy and a lot of momentum coming off the Cloud City EP. With this, of course, you're getting a lot of energy off of Sick and Finesse as well. When it releases, I just keep seeing that energy flowing and just keep seeing VRSTY growing to the point where, it's going to be a high demand thing. VRSTY is going to be in high demand for 2022.
I hope so, man. Like we have a lot of good things coming up. A lot of them make me really nervous because it's at the point now where some things are being offered to us, and I'm just like, I cannot believe this is really my life. But you also got to keep working. Like I got to keep a level head, man. And I as much as I complain about being busy, I also kind of love it. Like I love being able to do like all of my own things and have the freedom to do it and put it out. And also makes it more personal, or personable with people, like to be like, hey, I printed this shirt and I did this home. And it makes it nice to people because they're like, oh, you don't go through like a big company and a big manufacturer. Like everything you do, I'm getting directly from you. And I'm like, yeah.
It's got that personal touch to it. And that also speaks to just your online presence as well, because remember when I first talked to you, I kept talking about how your online presence, you're constantly talking with people, you're constantly commenting, people that comment on your stuff as well, and just keep up that feeling of that, you're actually connected to the fans. And from that last podcast to this one, that level has not dipped in any sort of way. Like every time I see it, I still see you commenting on everybody's stuff. I still see you just like making posts, and anytime someone responds, you're responding right back. You're available. Hell, anytime I post something that is VRSTY related, I always see either the VRSTY page or you like comment.
Dude.
I'm just like, well, shit. All right.
I always keep my phone on like just like loud, just the loudest setting, because I'm like, I hate when I miss things, because I still feel like we're tiny and I don't want to miss the opportunity to talk to the people that are supporting us now. Because I know that there is going to come a time where if this band gets bigger, there'll be too many people for me to get to all day. And so I'm like, while I have the opportunity to talk to everyone now, I might as well take advantage of it. You gotta take advantage of it while you have it.
Absolutely. And it just, again, it speaks to just the hardworking nature of VRSTY, but it's also the correct hardworking nature. It doesn't seem like it's busy work. It's anytime you're doing something that's going to further increase, the trajectory of the band. It's going to further increase what you are doing. And again, when it comes to just commenting on people that are commenting on your stuff, you're increasing that bond between yourself, the band, and the fans as well. Not only just the fan that you comment on, but everyone that sees that you're consistently commenting on everybody else and connecting with them from the shirts that you're making personally. And yes, I know you said like it's sometimes feel like you're way too busy, but it's like you said, it's happy. It's like a happy thing because you're busy working towards the goal that you have set forth in life. You're not working towards anybody else's goal. Yes. It's you're working towards what you want to do.
And that's what makes it the most fun for me, because it's not like I'm making someone else rich. I'm literally doing everything for my own, like just for my career. And that is like, it's such a good feeling, man.
Hey, it's something where, you're just from hearing it and hearing the voice in hearing the energy in your voice. It's somewhere you can tell that it's genuine. It's something you can tell that you're consistently energized by it, to the point where, again, printing t-shirts at 3 a.m. in your house. I mean, who else is going to do that unless if you're just completely motivated and wanting and willing to make sure that your goals in life are going to be achieved?
Yeah, man, you gotta put in the work. Like I'm a firm believer of my label's great and everything else, but I'm not shit without the people who support me. And I can't do this without like fans. And the people who support me are like literally my lifeline right now. It's like they're like the blood running through my veins. I'm like, I gotta give something back. Like I cannot just have them there. It's like, oh my God, yeah, you're a fan. Like, thank you for being a fan. It's like, no, dude, you put in the work to make them happy because they're responsible for everything I'm doing now anyway.
Yeah, and when you go out on tour as well, you're going to see those people show up in person, and you're going to be able to, foster those connections even greater in like face-to-face again. And that's something that, the pandemic robbed from us, but now the fact that, again, you're able to go out and play Cloud City out for people, and all of a sudden you got Welcome Home coming out as well. There's going to be so much new music that we haven't heard live that we're going to be able to hear for live for the first time, connect with people like that, and just really, again, increase those positive connections that you have with the fans. That's going to go such a long way to the point where, I mean, you're going to go out on tour with King Collapse, and I feel like half the room is going to be VRSTY fans, half the room is going to be King Collapse fans, and by the end of the night, everyone's going to be a VRSTY and King Collapse fan. I can't remember who else is going to be the opening band on that, but whoever the opener is, I can't remember the name, but they got on a good tour with you guys. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. So the opening band is Silent Trust. I've been thinking about this tour a lot, and I'm like, this is a really good tour to end my year. And if for the exact same reason that you said, I've listened to Kingdom Collapse for a while now, and I'm also watching their trajectory too. And I'm like, this is cool, man. Like two bands who are like kind of doing the thing right now, and it's like, and we got sandwiched together on this tour, and I'm like, this is gonna be probably the most fun tour.
I've got a feeling that you're gonna think that, and it's gonna become a thing. Like it will be, because again, I've met Jonathan before. I met the guys from King Collapse before. I know who they are. I know how much like they work almost. I would say almost as hard or just as hard as you, because I'm not sure if they print their own merch like you do. Like that's just something that's incredibly wacky. But it's something where it's just the energy and the willingness and the want and the desire to achieve the goals that you have. It's similar between King Collapse and similar between you guys and VRSTY as well. So when you guys are on that tour, and just seeing how these bands are growing between both and the trajectory that you guys are both on, it makes so much sense to have you guys on a tour and really close out 2021, because it's kind of like, who are going to be the bands that you're going to want to make sure you know of continually that are going to keep growing in like 2022, 2023. Just go to this tour. There are two perfect examples right there for you.
Yep, 180%. Also, my cat just like jumped from like one side of my living room to the other one, and I'm like, oh my God, like, dude, I got so distracted. You were talking, she was jumping. I'm like, what the
That would not be the first time where animals have distracted members that I've had on the podcast.
They're like running around right now, and like I love it, but I'm also I watch them and I'm like, why do you do this to me? Like,
why now? Just out of all times.
Why not? Yeah, just sleep.
Hey, at least hopefully they're not doing that at 3 a.m. when you're printing shirts, though.
Oh, they do. They're part of the reason why I'm printing shirts at 3 a.m. They wake me up and I'm like, I have nothing else to do now except for print shirts. Like, and so I'm just gonna keep doing it, because I try to not work overnight, like not tire myself out, but I'm just obsessed with working sometimes, man. Like sometimes I'll go to sleep dreaming about the thing I was just doing, and now I'm like, I gotta wake up and finish this. Like I gotta do this.
Hey, when the iron's hot, you gotta strike.
That is very true. That is very, very, very true.
That's very true. All right, as we're gonna close out this podcast, when it comes to Welcome Home, I have compiled a full-on overall, and I have no idea how long this actually is, because this might be the longest final thought I've ever written about an album. So I put, as my final thought for everyone listening and for Joy, this is my final thought on Welcome Home. The first full album, first full LP from VRSTY sees what we expect from the bands in some capacity. What we have is a consistent mixture of hip-hop and R&B elements at the beginning of the songs, only for heavier rock and metal sounds to come in to create a dynamic mix between the two. But the only way this will work on a consistent basis is with artistic integrity, and this album is full of it. Closer, Sick, Lovesick really show this in every aspect of the word. as they work to integrate rock and metal styles with beginning hip hop, pop, and rap elements. Once the breakdowns hit in these, it feels so natural to fit in with the hip hop elements to make these heavier songs in the album just completely stand out. Joey's vocal range works so well alongside these different stylings. He is able to use more of like a whispered and soft, clean style alongside the hip hop, R&B, and pop elements to create a flow that really lets you get into the ideas around relationships with others, yourself, and going after your dreams when others don't think you can do it. But then he goes with louder, sometimes a little bit whinier, scratchier vocals to really get a leg up and mix in well with the heavy realization that the heavier choruses want to show us. Now, this album is dynamic and not every song will be for everyone because it is so dynamic. But what this album does is have the perfect blend of many different styles that will show VRSTY to the world as the chameleon band. This band has the ability to blend into almost any single genre seamlessly, mix with other genres seamlessly, and have a major chance to be one of the biggest artists across the entire music industry by 2030.
I have no words. That was absolutely perfect. You also called us the chameleon artist, and I'm like, I love that. I absolutely love that. Why didn't I think of that? I'm not as cool as you are.
Why am I feeling all of a sudden like I'm gonna see like in the next couple of days, like before you go on tour, you're gonna have a shirt that says VRSTY's gonna have a chameleon on and be like, I know where that came from.
I'm just gonna get a picture of a chameleon. I'm gonna put on a shirt and I'm like, this is our band now, chameleon.
But like, I was trying to think of a way, like, how can I think of something that like mixes so well within its environment? I'm like, the first thing came, I'm like, it's got to be a chameleon because it can blend in so well with its environment. Like, again, you guys, you're blending rock and metal. Like, you bring hip hop elements, you bring pop elements, you bring R&B elements, you bring rap elements. You bring in so many different elements into this stuff, and I'm just thinking, the only way you can do this is with artistic integrity and do it well. And because you guys do it so well every step, I'm just thinking, chameleon, that's got to be the proper word for it.
Dude, I love it. I love it. I'm never changing that. When people ask, like, oh, what kind of music you are? It's like, I don't know. We're like a chameleon band, if that makes sense. You throw us on a wall and we'll just blend in with it like that. That's what we do.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, because I'm thinking about it, literally, you could throw your guys on pretty much any single tour package and it's going to fit.
I hope so, man. We have some pretty interesting tour packages for next year. So,
as much as I want to hear about them, I know you probably can't talk about them, so I'm not gonna ask.
Yeah, yeah. If I would, I would have done it already. But if I could, I would. But
exactly. See,
gotta keep it to
I've learned a thing or two about this business. So, Joey, as we bring this second incredible podcast with you to a close, I always like to give you a chance to say anything you want to say, promote whatever you want to promote, plug whatever you want to plug at the end of the episode. So, Joey, floor is yours.
Listen to VRSTY. That's it. That's all. Just please listen to VRSTY. That
is one way to put it. So now it's time for me to end with three things. So yeah, you just heard us talk all about VRSTY. You heard us talk all about the brand new EP, Welcome Home, which comes out on November 19th. So here is what I want you all to do. I want everyone to go to the links in the description of the podcast, whether you're on YouTube or on Spotify, Podcast, iHeartRadio, or Amazon. Here's what you're going to do. There are going to be so many links for you to follow. Follow them on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Join the VRSTY cult group that is on Facebook. Subscribe to their YouTube channel. Follow them everywhere you can. Listen to them on Spotify Music wherever you can, and pre-order, pre-save the album. I'll link their website as well, and I'll link where you can get their merch as well, where you can get some of these cool shirts that Joey makes. And I want you guys to go out, pre-order something, buy a shirt, because you know who's going to do something like that, and you know who already has done something like that? This guy. And if I haven't already done something like that, you know what? I'm going to do something like that right after we hang up on this call, because that seems like one hell of an idea. And I'll make sure you guys all know about it. So again, look at the description of the podcast. Links, labels, everything you need to know. So come join us, follow VRSTY, listen to VRSTY, everything you need, and pre-order and pre-save. Welcome home. Second thing, well, Joey, remember the first night on the podcast, I made a promise to you was when I see you perform live for the first time, first round's on me. Well, I haven't seen you play live yet, and I've had you on the podcast twice. It's not first rounds on me, it's first 2 rounds on me.
Yes, another round.
So when 2022 comes around and I get a chance to see you guys play live, because I know it's going to be 2022, yep, I'm gonna be there, be ready. All of a sudden it's like, okay, first round on me, all of a sudden second round, yep, I got it. Done.
Sick.
Yeah. So, Joey, as I close out this podcast, it is definitely not goodbye, because I love your podcast every single time. I love talking to you. And I can't wait to do this again, but also get to meet you in person, see you perform live. So goodbye. Yeah. Hell no, it's not goodbye. It's still see you later.
See you later.
Whoa, folks. I've been interviewing Joey from the band VRSTY. Again, Welcome Home comes out on the 19th. You're going to want to follow along with everything VRSTY has to offer. All of their socials. You want to become a member of the VRSTY Cult page on Facebook. You're going to want to follow along and subscribe to them on YouTube. You're going to want to buy some merch like I'm going to do literally right now. Also, you're going to want to stream your music pre-order, the new album Welcome Home. You're going to want to do everything to follow along with these guys because if you comment on something that they make, they're going to comment back to you because they are just that way. And it's absolutely incredible to really foster that great relationship between bands and fans. One of the hardest working bands out there. So make sure you do it. Make sure you, follow along with them, subscribe to their stuff, share their music, pre-save it, pre-order it. Man, it's going to be worth it. Also want to, make sure you guys are following us, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you're following the podcast, subscribe to it on YouTube or Spotify Podcast, iHeartRadio, or Amazon. I want to thank you guys. If not, link description below for everything with VRSTY stuff, our stuff. Be sure to do that. Thank you, Phoenix Fitness and Custom Debuts, for your sponsorships. Again, their sale codes that you get 15% off from Phoenix Fitness and 10% off from Custom Debuts are in the description of the podcast, along with the links as well to make it as easy as possible on you. Now, again, when I said that VRSTY is a chameleon band, that might be one of the most accurate representations I've ever heard and said. So make sure you get a chance to, if you're able to see them on tour with our friends in Kingdom Collapse, please go and do that. You will not be disappointed. Make sure you go support these guys. Make sure you listen to Welcome Home when it comes out on the 19th and many times after that. And make sure you're keeping tabs on VRSTY because when 2022 rolls around, they're going to be out touring. It's going to be incredible. You're not going to want to miss out on it. And I'm not missing out on it. I'm not. Cannot. Won't. Nope. Not missing out. It's going to be incredible. Thank you, Joey. This one was awesome. That's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you for watching, listening to the Chord Progression Podcast, brought to MC Rocks, Rock, and Thrive. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one of them. The big, healthy, and hearty. See ya!